everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. You guys, I'm Pete Wright, and that's Nikki Kinzer, and we're co-authors today.
We are. It's amazing.
It's amazing. I'm dating the show, but as we record this, because there's lead time, it is the day that the book comes out. And I should not be doing this. It is bad podcasting, but I'm just so excited because by the time the public hears this, 2 weeks will have passed.
Right.
But I don't care. We're just really excited. The book is out. Oh my
Yay.
gosh.
Yes, it's very exciting and surreal. And we're so excited to be sharing it with you.
Oh, so excited.
And this is our part 4 of our Unapologetically ADHD series.
Can I just tell you how weird it is to walk into Powell's City of Books on Saturday and see our book on the shelf next to ADHD is Awesome, the Holderness book.
Yes, that has to be pretty.
It was
surreal,
crazy surreal to see that. It is so exciting to see books on bookshelves. I cannot believe it. Thank you to everyone who has checked it out. If you are just hearing this for the first time, mea culpa, you've got some episodes to catch up on. Anyway, today we're talking about the planning workflow, and you can find out more about that in the book, Unapologetically ADHD, available anywhere finer books are sold today. All right, Nikki, the planning workflow. Where would you like to begin?
Well, let's do just a quick recap from last week where we talked about the workbox, right? So we talked about the workbox is where your work lives. And the two main tools that we need here are the calendar and task manager, but we have lots of other supporting tools that we use, that we work in. The calendar and the task manager are the ones that help us organize where we need to be and what we need to be doing. And the key is that they work together and they're not separate. They're not little separate tools that you just sort of, go into whenever you remember. They all have a function. They all have a flow to them to make it a complete workbox. And so now we are talking about the workflow, which is also known as a routine. And both Pete and I agreed that we don't like the word routine.
Yeah.
Yuck. It's not a great word. Sometimes it's hard because you have to just say it because it's really the only thing that fits that people are going to relate to. But we really, when we were doing our editing piece of the book and talking about it and talking about the definitions and how we wanted to describe things, we really wanted to find a different word. And that's where workflow came in. And just like you can have different routines, you can have different workflows around your tools. And basically what it means is that you have a set of actions that you're doing to update and maintain your workbox. And what we teach in the book and what I do in my GPS membership program is we have this weekly focus and then we have a daily detour. See, we are so ADHD friendly with our terms, right?
They just come out of nowhere.
Right? I mean, because who wouldn't want to do a weekly focus? But doing a weekly review or weekly routine, it just sounds icky. A daily check-in is okay, but daily detour, I like that. It kind of goes with the whole GPS theme of it too.
Well, it implies different. I mean, look at why we hate routine. Routine implies boredom. It implies it's the same thing again.
Yes.
But a workflow those are guidelines, right? They're just, here's how I do a thing that implies the thing to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like jazz. It can change. It can move. And that's what.
And it doesn't have to take a long time.
No.
Right.
No, it doesn't have to take a long time. So I really resonate with this.
Yes. So I'm going to go through some of the things that we recommend in doing in these workflows. And we're going to talk about time blocking, which I know Pete Wright has a lot to say about that.
Just a few.
Just a few things. But going back to reviewing what your inboxes are, because the very first thing that we do in GPS and that we recommend in the book is that you want to capture your new information that is coming to you. And we talked a lot about this last week with your inboxes. Where are you getting new information? Are you getting, for me personally, I get a lot of information through text messaging, especially around my calendar, because that's how my clients communicate with me. So if they need to cancel a session or they need to see if I'm available on a different day, all of that is happening in text message. And that's an inbox that I can't ignore. It's something I need to pay attention to every day. Email is an obvious place where we get new information. I'm also notorious for writing. In fact, I did it today when Pete and I were talking before the show. I will have a little piece of paper next to me and I write what I'm thinking. So, Melissa, edit everything. Melissa, you're editing everything. Just so you know that.
Oh, presented without context.
Right. Just edit everything.
Over the moon.
Yeah. Just so people know, Melissa is a really good editor.
Oh my God, she is so precise.
She's so good at it.
Insane how good. Like some people have superpowers that go beyond, and Melissa's superpower is proofing.
Yes, and that's hers.
She catches everything.
And then I have this little note here that says, ask for reviews at the launch party. But we can also ask our podcast listeners for reviews too. So if you really like our book, please review it because that's going to get more exposure for it. So anyway, there's my pitch for that. But however you basically take in information, new information, those are the things that you want to check. And so that's where your workflow really begins, is collecting this new information from your inboxes and then transferring this new information into your workbox. So you need to set some time aside where, okay, I see that so-and-so canceled today. I need to change that on my calendar. When I get done podcasting, I'm going to put these 2 tasks that I put on this little piece of paper into my task manager. So these things can happen as you're transferring your new information, and it can happen in the weekly focus, and it can also happen in the daily detour, which we'll tell you more about in just a moment. Once this information is in your workbox, then you can start updating and prioritizing what is most important in your task manager. So that's when that work starts to happen. So you collect the new information, you enter it into your workbox, and then you start updating and prioritizing and using all the features that you may want to use. So what happens, or what needs to happen with this workflow, is we need to make them resilient because nothing is perfect. You're not going to be consistent where every day you're not going to write something down on a piece of paper and then 5 minutes later put it into your task manager, right? We know that stuff isn't going to happen. So we want to really go in with a flexible mindset that this is something I need to pay attention to, but it's also very flexible. And if I don't pay attention to it in a couple of days, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. I just need to go back and pay attention to it. So there is a little bit of a mindset that has to kind of happen when you are working in this workflow. So I want to talk just a little bit about what a weekly focus session is. And basically what this is doing is it's maintaining your tools. It's maintaining the calendar, the task manager, and all of those other tools that you may be working in. In our GPS membership, we actually meet twice a week. We meet on Mondays and we meet on Thursdays. And the reason we do this is because Mondays, we're looking at the next few days. We're looking at the week ahead, but we're not necessarily doing a lot of planning. We're just looking to see what's coming up so that we're aware, but we're really planning like the next couple of days. And then on Thursday, we can adjust that schedule as we need to. Because what you think you're going to do on Monday doesn't necessarily happen on Thursday. So it's building in that flexibility of knowing that you're going to have some time to be able to work in these and update these systems.
Well, so, and why Thursday? Why not Friday? This is important.
Yeah. Because it was very thought out. And
very thoughtful.
This was not just a random, I'm going to pick Monday and Thursday. So I'm glad that you brought it up. Thursday, because it gives you enough time to adjust your Thursday and Friday schedule, but it also gives you some time to look at the weekend ahead. So it's not just all about work and what you are doing for work. It's also looking at what do I do on a personal level that I need to look for in the weekend. And we rarely do that. So it gives you that
Right.
time to adjust and plan for the last 2 days, but also gives you that time to look ahead into the weekend.
Yeah. Very
Uh,
important. And I think, leaving the planning for Friday invariably gets skipped because it's Friday. Come on. It's
sure.
Friday. You're tired.
Oh yeah.
Thursday's still sandwiched by work days
Right, right.
generally for many people, still sandwiched by work days. So, there's still some motivation to get those last things done. And you might find some things on that schedule that are actually effectively sort of high priority tasks that you haven't been able to get to. And it may influence how you think about Friday and how you use Friday morning.
It's so true. And it's also a day where you realize you start to learn what's realistic and what's not realistic to put on your lists. Because on Thursday, you're thinking, okay, I'm not going to get this done this week. Like,
Hmm.
I've got these other things that have to get done this week. I'm going to be okay with moving it into review of next week. And so on Thursday, you'll see yourself doing a lot of pushing dates forward
Yeah.
because they're just not the priority and you're not going to have time. So you start to learn more about what's realistic and what's not. And you get to learn how to prioritize more efficiently because you are still looking at the count. You're still doing this review twice a week rather than just once a week. So you don't have to know everything on Monday. Like
Yeah.
you can change, you can adjust. And so there's
Right.
just a lot of flexibility around that for sure. Um, okay, so then we're capturing, we're collecting, we're updating. And then this last piece of the weekly focus is around intentional planning. And this is time blocking. And we have a whole chapter on time blocking. And this is something that I talk a lot about in different presentations that I've had. I talk a lot about it in our membership. We talk a lot about it on the show. We both have, really strong opinions about this. So,
I don't
first
know
of
what you're
all,
talking about.
I
I don't know what you're talking about.
well, first of all, what I want to talk about is breaking some of the myths of time blocking. A lot of people will come to me and say it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And they'll say it doesn't work because they don't trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, or they don't do what they say they're going to do, or they didn't give themselves enough time, whatever they were doing before, to get into the time block. And so it just, all these things can kind of happen. And so I want to break a couple of myths. One is that not everything in your task manager needs to be time blocked. Uh, you can have white space, and that can be stressful sometimes for people, and I get that. Um, but it's also good to keep the meaning of when you actually are time blocking something, it means something to you. And if you are trying this method and you keep not following through, it doesn't have any meaning to it anymore. It's just like, oh, that's just another thing that I don't do. And then you'll stop doing it. So, intentional planning also does not rely on knowing how long a task will take. This is another thing that people get stumped on is I can't estimate time. I have time blindness. I have no idea how long this is going to take. So I don't know how long to save that time or
Right.
how to schedule that time block. But intentional planning, again, I want to repeat this, does not rely on knowing how long it's going to take.
Right. We
It
don't care.
it doesn't matter. It's just doing the task. It's just saving time to do the task. If you don't finish it, then you schedule another time block. So that's it. That you don't even have to know how long something's going to take. And we always want to consider your ADHD. This is something that I'm really proud of Pete and I. And what we do in the book is we are always considering your ADHD. So you want to include buffer time for distractions, for transitions, for tasks taking longer than you expect. And so as soon as you start considering, oh, right, I have ADHD, I need a little bit more time to switch from this context to another, your your schedule is going to start making more sense.
Right.
Uh Time blocking, you want to talk about why it can be difficult? Because I know you've got a whole bunch of stuff here that you want to talk about that are coming from some of the essays that you wrote in the book.
Well, and I wanted to make sure we covered, I think you've covered a bunch of them, right?
Mhm.
What the objections are, but I think there are sort of the big three reasons that time blocking is difficult before we even get to the objections, right? One is this identity issue. It's fear of failure, right? Like,
Yes.
um, I've tried time blocking before in whatever manner I've tried it and it didn't work, and why would I want to give myself that feeling again of not being able to do something, right? We're just suggesting maybe here's a new way. Calendar anxiety. How fast does the calendar get out of date in your life, right? How
Yes.
attuned are you to the calendar? Let me tell you, it's a muscle and it can be built. It can be built, but it doesn't have to be built the same way everybody else is building it, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be built in that way. You can build it the way it works for you and your brain. The other piece is over personalization, right? And this leads to a bit of a different topic, that time blocking is a tool. It's not a personality test, right?
So true.
Time, right? It's not, we're not judging you for how you time block. We're just judging that you're trying it, because trying it means something. And the essay, I'll just tell you, my cheeky title is Real Talk. You're already time blocking. You're just doing it like a chump, because we already block time for things like brushing my teeth, eating meals,
Mhm.
right? Like, I already block time for those kinds of daily buckle shuffle activities. So why not try to block time for a little bit more of my work activity? This is where I think people's assumptions around time blocking get broken, because what they're thinking of is not time blocking. They're thinking of hyperscheduling. And hyperscheduling is not time blocking. Hyperscheduling is scheduling every minute of every day. And you'll see that it's a very common practice in professions that have client billing. Right. If you're
Right.
working in the medical field, then you have to bill against insurance. If you're working in the legal field, then you're billing against client activities. But it has been adopted by hyperschedulers for everything. And you look at you can look at certain calendars, people's calendars, and see that their time is blocked at a degree of minutia that makes me dizzy. All time blocking is saying is, I have time focused on dedicated a dedicated task or a dedicated set of tasks to work. And it can be 15 minutes long. It can be 3 hours long. I probably would suggest you not do 3 whole hours straight, but and you don't have to work on the same thing. On your
Right.
calendar, you don't have to write do task A. You can write work on task A or visit task A. I think do is a word that carries a lot of judgment around it,
Yeah.
because it implies you're going to start something and finish it. And I'm encouraging you not to do that, right?
Mhm.
Don't
Mhm.
don't tell yourself you're going to finish a thing. Be grateful if you do happen to finish a thing and ship it. But if you don't, just know that there should be another time block coming up for you to continue moving that ball down the field. So the objections we talked about, sticking to a schedule is hard with ADHD, right? It does. So what if time blocking wasn't rigid? What if it were able to adapt to your changing needs? We have difficulty estimating time, like you said. Yeah, okay. So what if we didn't aim for perfect estimations anymore? What if we just tracked how long it actually took us to do something and not how long we thought it would take us to do something eventually? Let's
Mhm.
just let's just see. Let's just acknowledge interruptions. Let's acknowledge that sometimes you got to let the dog out. Sometimes the house gets busy and you got to come in the house and do some work. Sometimes people stand at your desk and tap their feet and wait for you to acknowledge them. Sometimes your boss calls you in for a meeting. Sometimes things happen, and we're just acknowledging that your calendar is fluid. It moves, and maybe you have to adjust your blocks of time accordingly. Um, People say it's restrictive and overwhelming. Sure, okay, I can see that. But what if time blocking was just a scaffold? What if it was just a structure? What if it
A
just
placeholder.
a placeholder, right? What if it just showed you this space on my calendar is shielded for opportunity, right? It's
Yes.
protected time. That is, I think, the switch that you can flip to say, look, this time is valuable. It's valuable for me to move something forward. anything. It could be a knitting project. It could be a painting project. It could be an accounting project. Whatever it is that's important at the time, you've shielded that time from other activities because you value that as important.
Mhm.
Overly or difficulty switching tasks. We talk a lot about context switching. Time blocking doesn't necessarily mean with sticking to one task per block, right? Do many tasks. Be improvisational about it. Move from thing to thing depending on what your brain is most attuned to doing. It's okay.
Mhm.
I think we feel like time blocking is a ball and chain
Right.
to productivity tools, and it's really not. It's
No.
really, really not.
No.
It is designed to help you protect time for important tasks coming up next. So,
Well, and one of the things that I want to bring up about placeholder, this came from one of our members of GPS, and she had mentioned it, and I loved it because it really does say it all, that we're putting it here, but it doesn't mean it has to stay there. It can move and it can be changed. And another member from our GPS group mentioned a line from Mean Girls
mhm.
where she said, "So on Wednesdays, if I don't want to wear pink, I really don't have to wear pink." I'm like, right. You got it. Even though it says to wear pink, if you change your mind, it's okay. So it's keeping that flexibility mindset in it for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
right,
great, Pete.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The last thing that I want us to talk about is this daily detour. So a daily detour is a check-in, and it's something that you can do 5 or 10 minutes. And I one of the things I didn't say about the weekly focus is we really don't want to spend a lot of time on the weekly focus or you're not going to do it. So if you're taking 2 hours to update your schedule and your task manager and all of that, it's too long because you won't be able to maintain that. So a weekly focus, we really want to be around 30 to 40 minutes. And then the daily detour, we're looking at like 5 to 10 minutes because all you're doing is you're starting your day. You're looking at your calendar so you can see what upcoming appointments you have. Is there anything that I need to prepare for those appointments? I'm looking at my task manager, what is showing up, whether it's a paper planner or digital, what is showing up that I need to do today? Is it accurate? Do I need to update it or adjust it? And off you go. That's all it is.
Mhm.
So we're not doing any major planning. We're just checking and seeing if everything is still on track. And if it's not, we're making those adjustments. What happens when you do this is it makes your weekly focus much, much easier so that you really can get it done in 30 minutes because uh you're checking in with yourself every day, you're updating it, you're checking things off. It's working. It's this flow, it's this workflow that we're talking about.
Right.
If you get behind though, it's okay because if you're not doing it every day, you've got your scheduled time for the weekly focus to catch up. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer that time, but that's okay. I mean, you can still get back into it because you have a resilient system. And that's the thing that you want to remember is don't blame yourself for having it get behind. Try to avoid that shame spiral. Get in there, do the work, and you're going to find that it's not going to take you as long as you think it's going
Right.
to update it. So that's what I have to say about workflow.
And I would just add that a variation of the beginning of the day daily detour, I tend to do my daily detour check-ins at the end of the day
Mhm.
because because just the way my brain works, when I hit the desk first thing in the morning, I want to make sure I'm not surprised. And
Right.
it helps me sleep better when I do my check-in at the end of the day. Then I look at my task list at the beginning of the day and I know exactly where I'm going to start.
Yeah.
And so that's a variation, but it's the same principle. It's exactly the same principle. Is whenever you decide to build this into your system, um, just set a reminder and do it. Eventually it will take 3 minutes, not
Mhm.
15 minutes. Like
No.
it's fast.
It's
it can
really
be
fast.
really fast.
It's just part of your work. It's just part of what you do. And something I do want to talk about briefly before we end is the GPS membership program. One of the things that does make it different is that we teach you all of the different things that we do in the book, and we go into much more detail in the membership program about different aspects of planning. But what it does is it gives you those Mondays and Thursdays to actually do the work. And you're doing it with other people that, have ADHD, have the same kind of issues that you have. You're learning from myself and from Melissa, but you're also learning from others in the community. And that's really what sets it apart from group coaching is you get to save that time with other people. So if this is something you're struggling with on doing on your own, I definitely recommend you looking at the GPS membership site.
Absolutely. But most of all, takecontroladhd.com/ADHD
book, because that's here
right
now.
It's
today,
here right now.
In the bookstores.
On that page, I've put merch. We have merch. You can get hats. You can get we have the new I'm Unapologetically ADHD t-shirts and sweatshirts and hats and mugs and everything. They're all there. They won't be there forever, but for now it's fun to celebrate. And I haven't placed my order, but you can bet I'll be getting an I'm Unapologetically ADHD pillow for my couch.
Yes.
That's important. So lots of fun things. Check it out. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us as we continue our journey through Unapologetically ADHD. We've got one more week next week. What are we talking about next week?
We are talking about future planning. And so a little bit of long-term planning. We don't go far because, that we're not like planning your life out, but we can plan the next 3 months.
We sure can.
Yeah.
Like a boss. And that's what we're going to do next week.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening. We appreciate your time and your attention. If you have something to contribute to the conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server, and you can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level. And we'd love for you to come over and share your thoughts on pieces of the book that resonate with you. And don't forget, Amazon loves those reviews, and so do we. 5-star reviews even show up on our website now. That's pretty exciting. So thank you for sharing and allowing us to share your thoughts. We appreciate you. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD Podcast.